welcome to the third Data Layer Sessions episode. I am Zach Winthy, Director of Product Marketing at Telium. I'm excited for this entire session. If you haven't watched the other episodes, make sure you go check out those as soon as you're done with this episode. But today we have another perspective in our expert series, and I will let him introduce himself. But Giorgio comes from from a very practitioner and strategic background, so this is going to be a great conversation around the strategy and understanding of data layers. So with that, before I dive into questions, Giorgio, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and who you're with?
Thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Hello, everybody. Giorgio Suighi. I work in WPP Media. I'm global lead for data and tech, and I touch artificial intelligence too. I'm part of ANA and multiple committees to try to work across the industry also on that type of topic. Nice to be here.
Awesome. So you've got a broad view, obviously, by working with organizations across, not just industries and verticals, but across the globe. And, customer data strategy is not a new topic. It's something obviously people have been debating and discussing for years, but obviously AI kind of has forced people to even think again about their strategy. So what are organizations, when you're sitting in the room with them today, what are the conversations like? What are people thinking about, and really maybe what are they missing as they're having those conversations?
It's interesting that some of the conversation we have in today are still the same we had in 4 or 5 years ago, before pandemic, because everybody think about the customer journey. Everybody think about the concept of orchestration, but then they think just as a theory, as a word, as a foundation, not as a foundational component. So they hear the word like AI is a word. What does it mean behind it? What's the reality is another story. And sometimes there is a lot of, wrong, let's say, incorrect perception of the clients think they're ready most of the time to orchestrate when they don't. The foundation is the data. They miss the component, the key component to everything. And it goes the same for AI or modeling. No matter where you go, there's always the same question I have, like, do you think you have the right data to support what you're trying to achieve? And the question sometimes is yes, and then you just audit and you don't see it. You don't see half of it. Same story in terms of orchestration. When you think about, and you're going to see on Telium side too, clients want to get the audio stream. Okay, you want to orchestrate. How many other toys do you have in room? So that's many times that you and I talk in the past is this hunt for a toy, the new toy, collecting toys one on top of the other. There's no integration sometimes, most of the times, or there is no architectural design behind the scenes on trying to get towards a goal, what you're trying to achieve. Known users versus unknown have two different patterns. You have less data available. You need to think in a different way. And once you enrich, the data needs to move back and forth to different routes. So that's what I'm seeing missing right now. And the conversation are the same as before, adding AI on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think we had it in personalization for years. It was, we need to do personalization. And then it wasn't generally a technology problem. After a point in time, it was, do you have the right data? Do you have the right context? And more importantly, do you have the right content to personalize? And now AI is kind of creating that same, pattern of, well, we want to do AI, but we either don't have the right underlying data, or we do have the right data. It's just not in the right place. It's not in the right structure. So where should organizations, where do they start with that? Where do you want to, if you're sitting in a room and you've got a mandate, how do you unwind from, like you said, toy collecting to something of value?
If you talk about AI specifically, the first thing I always say to everybody is tell me what you're doing as an organization, because more and more you hear people talking about AI strategy, and I don't think I agree with that definition. If you don't have a strong business strategy preset, AI is not going to be able to complement it at all. So that's the thing that is the first part that I always say. And the second, as you say correctly, the data, where the data stays, how it is, security, ethical usage of the data, protection of the information going in. That's the part I've been overlooked for a long time, and now is getting more and more attention. There is also some work between ANA and 4A, the two committees I'm part of for AI, when there's all the attention on coding this for the entire industry. So I think that, and even other sectors have the same. Can be finance, can be tech, can be even CPG, even if it's less because they have less data available, but still on the creative end, there's a lot of attention. There's more and more focus on that. So I will say to people, what you're trying to do as an organization, how AI, which component of AI can complement what you're doing, because not all of them are needed, and then
Right.
create an action plan, trying to remove also, especially with AI, we have a trend happening every 3 to 6 months, from agentic to everything has Gen AI, everything that comes in your mind. The complexity and the speed with which AI is moving is exponentially faster than anything we see before.
Yep.
So most of the time, the work of people like us, like you and me, is keep the client away from the vaporware, put them straight to what they need, and in some cases help them to understand that some solution or AI is just an optimization engine that could be built long ago. It's just a process optimization play is different. So we need to come back and cut off, like the cheese, cut off the fat and give them the cream.
If you start with the strategy and you start with a use case, then if the technology changes, then
Yeah,
you swap in new technology, you swap in new AI. And as opposed to if you built your whole strategy around
yeah,
a specific AI stack or a
yeah,
specific model, then you are almost with a solution going looking for
yeah,
problems. And obviously everybody says start with use cases, but if I'm sitting in this room across from you and I'm saying, okay, great, I have some strategies, I have some ideas, but I don't know which use cases are right for AI. I don't know which use cases are maybe having the low hanging fruit
yeah.
or the big impact that we should start with so we get some early wins. What are you advising customers or your clients on as those kind of like high impact starter use
For
cases
AI specifically.
for AI or just today in
In 2026
2026?
in general, like the first part is, and many times I'm going to be honest, even your products come into the game. Like data is a key, right? So getting behavioral information to enrich audience definition and segmentation is key, especially because fits model fits everything you're going to have around you, and is a data that many times is not structured as well as it could be to be connected to first party data and everything else. So using a Tilium IQ or a tag management for the matter, that can help you, tracking information from metapixel, from analytics, connect scripts left and right, blocking one. In my main point, always trying to say to the client, the first thing is data foundation. And that's something I always say even before. Without that, everything else goes literally out of the window. Analytics, insight generation, modeling, connecting to analytics, even audience segmentation. All this practice needs to start, even AI. Without the right data, again, qualitative data makes a huge difference on how the model is going to react and in the quality of the results. Can be an agent, can be a model that generates insight, can be anything. But what I'm suggesting most of the time right now is still start from the foundation, data, because everybody talk about data. We have too much data. You need to understand the right one, have a clean one, have permission data, thinking about AI as we said before. So this is where we go most of the time. And then open up to other use cases, like how we can use AI, especially more, is easier for creative because we have some work streams preset and we have our own solutions with open, where we have different studios where we can tap in and do something way faster between activation and creative. But it really depends on the client by step. But most of the time I start and end with data because there's still a lot to
Yeah.
do there and we still know where we should be.
Well, and AI opens up an opportunity where, Mike, our founder, was talking about this on a previous episode where we may not have to evaluate all of the data, 12 years of
Yeah.
historical data anymore, because
Yeah.
AI can kind of make that logical leap from, well, this is how that person was a year ago. Are they different? Do we go down a different path? And so now it becomes even more imperative, I
Yeah.
think, that we start with the use case, and then what information do we need to power that use case so that we can give the AI the right context in that moment. But obviously a lot of organizations are driving transformation. They're driving,
Yeah.
this idea of we need something new in 2026, but it's not always backed by that strategy. It's not always like anchored in that. So what, from a
Yeah.
transformation,
Yeah.
perspective, we're not always basing that in strategy, right? And I think
No.
where is that pressure coming from, in your opinion? And then how do we fix that?
One first, there is a provocation I had for um, your leader, the talk the other time. I agree. AI can make a lot of work, but since when we need 12 years of data? With the current, I'm thinking about media activation, you have 1,000 data points for every second, if not more. So there's also this part. The historical data has an importance part, but in some use cases, it can be very marginal. We can use recent data and build a model on top of that with the speed allow us with the data flow that we have available to all of us. Behavior information, as I said before, advertising from everything, every single click, every single information, every single auction goes by the millisecond, so even faster. So we have more than that. The innovation part, there are two parts, obviously. The famous trend that we said before, people read online, they want to be there, they want to be on top of the line. I need to be there. I want to use AI. I want to use a CDP. I want to use, years ago, was identity. And we all know that most of the people that started use identity solutions then have to roll back and find a different way because they was just testing them. Few achieved the real strategic benefit because they were able to have experts on the table connecting what they were trying to do and on. So there is, one is a push for the market, one is a push from the outlets. And sometimes people confuse a trend with what we really need. And there was a moment where everybody was talking about the digital transformation or tech transformation. Mm-hmm. And we got back to where we were. Oh, I need a DMP at a time. Oh, then I need a CDP. Then I need that. What do you need it for? And then we see people trying to activate on things, not even knowing how to build up an overall profile in Adobe. So that's one of the reasons. I think the main reason is, in some cases, some companies just don't want to be, there's a fear of missing out a lot in our world, especially in advertising. And in tech in general, you see people jumping on a new trend. What we missing? AI. Everybody now is an agentic. You don't always need a freaking agent. Like, understand what you need and then connect the dots together. Oh, I want to show to the press release with the first one using this agent. Boo freaking who? Like, okay, and then what? I mean, sorry guys, I come from the mountains, so apologies to everybody listening here, but I'm pretty direct. I would like to see more people be more purposeful in their choices than just pinging out, going up and out like a pinball map. So that's the first question. The second, sorry, I'm gonna ask you 47 times. I'm old and I have an Alzheimer on set, so sorry.
No, so obviously that's the problem. Then how do you advise somebody who's like, I don't want to follow that path. I don't want to chase the trend or the shiny object, but maybe my leadership does, or they just don't know. How do we sell up? How do we educate?
In the case you come with data, there is a quote that somebody told me long ago when I was working in California. I still use it. It's like, you don't come with opinion into a data fight. Same with the technology. Usually what happens is I try to build an integration story saying, hey, this is what you have right now. This is what you're trying to achieve between now and 3 to 5 years. You're going to have short and long-term objectives you want to tackle. There is a way to define a timeline together. And let's see what you have. I don't know, you have a new star. We can connect the tagging on the other side with Ethereum into the stream. Going back to the CDP, you have an Adobe. We can design with you something tailored depending on what you have. Or some clients have their own tech and they come to us saying, hey, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to have, example, better efficiency for my money. And we can connect, in our case, part of the WPP, we have our system open. We can connect that into an entire ecosystem where we have your data getting from tagging from Tilium IQ coming from a data storage, plus the first party data and everything else pumping in, create a full-fledged automated system that goes from discovery to activation and measurement, including measurement. So the idea is to create an integrated story that is rooted on what the client is and what he's trying to do, what you already have. You don't want to reinvent and destroy half of the technology. Also, because it depends which stakeholder you're talking. A marketing stakeholder would never have access to the tech. Usually it's IT buying the technology for them. then implies security coming in. All this type of processes that's going to require forever, and you want to show result in at least 6 months. So you need to be able to be flexible but realistic. So what I do usually is like, hey, this is what you have, this is how you can play with your toys, this is what we can put on top if it makes sense, this is the phasing, and this is the results for every phase you're going to achieve by top, middle, low funnel, yay or nay, and we move on.
And you talked a little bit about, you kind of mentioned, we've talked a couple times, about teams and who's involved. And, obviously from the history of Tealium, even, we've, the teams and the personas have kind of changed, originally with tag management, obviously it was more of a web team. And then as you get into CDP, it's a broader kind of marketing and campaign and performance team, ad tech, all of those. Now we're kind of shifting where, obviously with AI and with just a broader organization realizing customer data is valuable asset. It's one of the most valuable assets because everybody has the tools, everybody has the same technology, everybody has the same, model, hyperscalers, vendors, so then it's the application of that data. So how do you think teams should be structured? Like, who should own the customer data strategy? Who owns the AI strategy? Where do you think the best practices kind of lie in just that, in a broad view of that org structure?
I don't think there is one size fits all, to be honest. It depends on the company, what they're trying to achieve again, and who owns technology in the org chart. Usually you need to have a data strategy and the audience strategy teams that work together, defining together with the research, what the personas are, the input, the audience overall, the umbrella definition of what they are. Then you need to have another tech component when it comes in and connect with us on how that translates into something else, as you said. And you're right on saying everybody has similar technologies, but Adobe Galaxy say you guys came in aggressively with a predict, and some function are different than others. I like sometimes when you calculating the likelihood on a specific action. I like what you guys build, to be honest, on the user behavior. In some other cases, I like the other counterparts for other reasons. Like I work with Sensei when they were an alpha, so I see some of the products how they evolved, and there's some value on the market basket analysis and prediction there. But again, everyone got their own preferences of what they're gonna use or not. Team structure, it really depends. You need to have multiple teams working together, which sometimes doesn't happen yet. I still see on the client side, but even bigger organization, even on our end, sometimes there could be more collaboration among teams, and that's a key. Customer data, you're right, is the key. But if you think about it, first-party data is a currency since forever. It became more and more prominent because we have more signals, more information available to us, and we can tap into multiple devices in one shot and have a more complete story. How we use it and what's the right data to use and when, that's the key. So having the data strategy and customer strategy connected to an analytics team, because that's where all the insights come in and close a circle, plus a tech team very tight with those. And that's the more important among all of them. You need to have one or two people that translate back and forth, because that's a key. IT doesn't speak as a marketing, and I come from a hardcore IT, meaning I was in server rooms. When my first job was clamping cables, configuring servers in the racks, like coming from the box, open, clamping, defining the cluster, load balance, everything you can imagine from the ground up. So unfortunately, I know what it means because there's a different way to talk. And sometimes I act even here as a translator, because you need to have a different language. When you go to technology, you need to go deeper. You need to talk about specific components. You need to help them understand how that impacts the rest of the business. So
yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, my career, as I shifted from kind of industry and marketing to becoming that marketing technologist, to do that, to translate between technical teams and marketing. I was enough of a nerd that I could do that. It's funny, just about a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago, we released a new ebook, and the new trend, I think, is this idea. It's much like a marketing technologist, but it's on the data side. So it's the customer data strategist, as we call it, which is that person who understands the business side of how we want to use this data, what we want to do with it, but then understands the limitations of how does SQL work, how does Python work, how do I talk to a data engineer to get the right value out at a performant,
Yeah.
in a performant manner, especially, at the scale that you want or at the size that you want, and and be that, that middle person. And I see that
Oh
trend
yeah.
growing more, whether they're called that or not. But what other changes do you see, obviously, as we go into 26,
Yeah.
27? Organizations are rethinking how they
Yeah.
staff, how they, their strategies. AI is changing, even, I mean, from a bidding
Oh yeah.
perspective, from a content perspective. What other changes do you think organizations should be at least watching for, or kind of like preparing for, that may be coming?
Uh, First, you say correctly. What you said before about the data science, we have audience scientists in our case, and it's a separated practice compared to audience strat. So that's something that very correct. That's the additional team you need to have that connect the dots, because they're not pure analysts. They just apply data science to audience, defining market
Right.
basket analysis, different use cases, even AI-driven models. We're using DMA data and audiences and so on. So that's thinking about the future. That's one of the teams that's going to be they're going to be more and more crucial, and people are hiring more and more of those everywhere. Like everybody needs those. Everybody is trying to build their own recipe, their secret sauce with that. But we all know the models are finite. So no matter what you say, we can go back to the same 7 to 9 models that people use it consistently. So what's going to happen next? I mean, we are still in the agentic, but it's going to dry down pretty soon, and we're going to have a new trend coming. Not sure which one we're going to be, actually, because there are 2 or 3 happening right now. But the point is, we get to a historical moment when you have many models, many LLMs. People are trying to embed into their own tool set. It can be Gemini, can be anything, can be Claude, can be Baby Yoda, whatever. There's going to be more and more companies trying to embed those or have partnerships. We did one with Google. It's not a secret.
Yeah.
To have a core engine that supports everything else you do, and it's going to be a huge differentiator in terms of efficiency of what you can achieve in standard tasks and how to automate some activities and make them smarter. Even on research, you can automate things and personas and have it in front of you and have a richer approach to audience definition. In terms of AI trends, agentic is still on the core in his main part, in the explosion part. So we're going to see this going another 8, 10, 12 months before it gets more die down and goes to something higher. There is explainability. There's going to be more and more forced through, especially on financial institution. And explainability is a key. Everybody is talking about that, including if you think about the governance and everything. There's going to be more trend of validation as a service. What if the agent makes a mistake? So that's coming more and more. Like verifiability part is going to be one that's going to come up more frequently than it did before, and it's connected to what we said in the beginning: governance, which data, how to protect it. You see what happened. McConaughey trend marking himself, going against AI to not be used in creative way. A little bit too late in the time, because good luck removing his data from the AI, but you see what everybody's trying to go right now. So having that, I don't think we're going to get to a concept of, let's say, trust scores or something similar, but having an actor agent that goes there and understand that which data is used and protected. Especially when you have multiple clients coming to the same, you need to make sure they're protected and isolated and not feeding into the competition. I'm thinking about the Google. If I'm using your model, who prevents me to say I don't want to support? Like, who prevents you to support your competition? So, that's going to be on the business side a very important trend. I think we're going to hear more and more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think you're right. I think regulations and guidelines always tend to fall a step or two behind
Yeah.
innovation, because the innovation's the fun part, and then figuring it out, regulating it is
Yeah.
always
It's
necessary but less
yeah,
exciting.
in some
So
regions and countries
um
more than others.
absolutely, yes. So as we wrap up here, and obviously for the listeners, I think everybody always wants to go, okay, well, what do I do next? Like, I agree with you. Where do I start? So, like, if you could give one piece of advice, on Monday, go in and start here, test this, try that. What would you suggest is a good starting point for for our listeners?
It depends who you are. If you work on the client side on a specific brand, ask yourself what we're trying to achieve and what am I missing? What we're missing that can be um, reinforced by other practice or other pieces of technology to get to the next level. Do I have all the data I need to understand my customers? Do I understand what I want to do with these customers? How this feeds into my overarching business objective? If you are on the agency side, how to support multiple verticals, being flexible and unbiased enough. Do I have everything that I need? And what data am I missing? Most of the time, again, it's not because we are here, but behavioral data is one of the main components that sometimes is overlooked. How can I guarantee orchestration from CRM to activation? That's the same story. Do I have what it takes? If not, start talking to your CRM team, to the different teams, and understand how to do it, and start designing how the flow is gonna look like, and which pieces which tech components actually will enable this journey. And then think about how AI as a hat on top of everything, not before, comes in parallel or
Not
after.
before. I think that is a perfect place to stop. AI is important, but it's not necessarily the starting point. Start with the use case. So, Giorgio, thank you for spending time with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure, and this was fun. And I think we'll have to have everybody back in about 6 months and see what changed, what's different. We'll do the mid-year update.
I love it.
So. For everybody else, if this is your first episode, make sure you sign up for the entire series and watch all 3 other episodes from Mike Anderson, our founder and CTO, Scott Brinker of Chief Martech, and Nick Albertini, our field CTO at Telium, all with a different perspective, but all experts in this space.